A man getting bit by an alligator and he screams.
Okay, quiet. Hey, quiet.
Stood out towards me.
Oh! No, not an owl. A real scream of pain.
Have you tried to listen to the new Will Smith album yet?
It never occurred to me to try.
To even do that?
To even think about that. So no. No, have you?
I've listened to a couple of songs. And yeah, no. I'm good. I think I'm okay.
I mean, it's I don't know. Look, I was never, when I listened to parents just don't understand. I mean, how old was I? 10?
Right. Yeah.
So at that point, it was the novelty of it was enough. But to go back and listen to that or to listen to any of his stuff, I'm just like, it's kind of drivel to me. I don't find it interesting. I don't find it compelling.
I mean, I know he's the first person who won a Grammy for rap, but I mean, like, and I just read that. I have no clue if that's actually true or not. But yeah, I mean, like, he obviously, I think, was a lot of white people's foray into that musical genre.
Yeah.
Because it was safe, right? And it was cheesy and it was bubblegum rap. I mean, like, at its best, right? Yeah. I mean, like, the Too Damn Hype was like the worst you got in regards to curse words, right?
Is that like is it like blue-eyed rap? I mean, is that what we kind of like
I guess so.
Classify
I guess
as?
so. So yeah, I mean, like, I think there's a little bit of, well, I will say this about the songs that I heard. I don't think and I never really took him, obviously, I don't think he ever took himself as a pillar or as a someone to look up to in the rap game, right? I mean, he was never someone, aside from someone being early on, right? Those guys that were really early on, from like breaking and like I say, like breaking and breaking too, and beat streets, like none of those guys, like Ice-T, LL, like Run, like none of those guys looked up to Will Smith, aside from maybe the monetary portion of it, right?
Yeah.
And he quickly jettisoned it, right? I mean, as far as his career goes, he went. So like everything that I hear from him, and even the songs that I heard from him today that are just not like completely self-pandering and awful, are, they sound like movie soundtrack songs, right?
Yeah.
He sounds like MC Hammer, essentially. I mean, he sounds like, Wild Wild West or Men in Black, or, all of them sound like they should be played over in credits. There's nothing necessarily inherently wrong with that. It's just not good music. I mean, it's not something that I'm going to put in, right? It's something, if you hear it in the background at a party, you're like, oh, this will be over in a minute, and it's fine. It's,
Hopefully.
I will say there's a handful of songs I think he has that are really good. And I think that's basically it. I'm surprised that, like, this is supposed to be a trilogy of albums.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and it's, the first one's called Based on a True Story, and I'm just like, oh man, like,
What?
it just, like, look, at one point you were the biggest star in the world, and eventually it was going to come for you, right? Eventually it was going to fade. You helped fade it.
I was going to say,
wife.
you helped that along.
And so, like, enjoy your millions at this point, and hundreds of millions of dollars. Look, it's fine.
Yeah.
I feel like this idea of, well, now I'm going to be, I'm going to reinvent myself in the music game. You were never,
Right.
It wasn't like you were.
Is he going to start like getting chest tattoos and
Right, like MC Hammer did at the end, like when he
Right.
tried to go hard.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, try to go hard.
When he dropped the MC and was just Hammer.
Slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars is one thing, but yeah, trying to act, I don't know. So no, I have not. I have not even considered. I did not even know that like Will Smith had a new album out.
It's out on YouTube if you're interested. It's all free. You
yeah.
can just go listen to it on YouTube.
Because I mean, I typically spend my free time just scrolling through YouTube. Looking
I kind of figured as much.
I'm
right?
trying to maintain my cred with the youths, and that's what the youths do, right? Is they talk about the YouTube and the Mr. B or whatever his name is that like gives things away on the YouTube.
Mr. Beast.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I'm just messing around. Anyway, I was gonna say, well, before we jump in, did you want to touch on the Stephen A. Smith LeBron conversation? I'm kidding.
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, no, I was. I figured as much, but I just wanted to make sure that we gave you time to air any grievances that you had that you might have had with anyone. So anyway, like enough of that. Like, welcome back, Screamers, to another episode where we discuss one of the great actors of our time, Mr. Gene Hackman. Hackman passed away in February, and so we are here to look at a handful of his films: Scarecrow, Night Moves, The Package, and perhaps maybe his most underrated, underappreciated film, Loose Cannons.
The Gigli of his au revoir. It's and we tried to pick films that are not talked about as much, right? These I don't think these fall within my favorite Hackman films, but they're definitely were interesting to go back to and watch.
Wait, because there's I think Night Moves for me definitely falls under one of my favorite Hackman films.
Yeah, I mean you're right. I think Night Moves is great. I like 3 of these.
Yes.
The 4th one is wildly interesting in a ridiculous train wreck. But when I think Hackman, I like Hackman in. I think The Conversation is probably my favorite Hackman.
Sure.
But then I like late era Hackman. I really like Heist. I really like Royal Tenenbaums. I like his performances in those, and I think those kind of like always kind of bubble up to the forefront for me as the ones that I think about.
That's fair.
But yeah, I mean, like just going back and watching these, it was such a like, just I don't know, watching them in kind of in order was just like, man, he's so like consistently good in like all of even Loose Cannons. Like he's so consistently good in all of this. Like I feel like Loose Cannons, and when we get to it. But like I feel like regardless of the outcome of that movie, he gave it his all. I think he was in the right movie. He kind of understood, and then the stuff around him. That movie's just bonkers. I can't wait to talk about it. But but we can go in whatever order we want to go into.
So,
but yeah, but for me, like Heist, like I really, really love that. I mean, I really love that movie, but I really love like him just kind of eating up that dialogue, and the same thing with Anderson, like too. Those two like that really kind of put him in with this like just delicious and meaty, there's these words that you can just spit out, and that Hackman ease is just so great. And seeing him kind of just like chew those up, I think was so much fun from kind of like in that late or early 2000s era Hackman, which was kind of the end of his career. So
yeah, no, absolutely, and I agree with that. And I'm glad we didn't pick French Connection. I just think that's probably one that's over discussed or doesn't need to be discussed on a podcast such as this. Right. A couple notes before we start. I wanted to let listeners know about the Dallas International Film Festival that's coming up starting April 25th and running through May 1st. We'll be there covering it. So if you see us, right, come up and say hello to your boys. You can find out more at dallasfilm.org. And also a shout out to Deadhead Dan 10, who left us a lovely review on the podcast. So
that's nice.
Just wanted to say that. Yeah. Deadhead Dan 10. Keep listening, Deadhead Dan 10. It only gets worse. So
it only stays the same at best.
We are aiming for a consistent
right.
So yeah.
We're kind of in that level of like listen to us while you're falling asleep, or like while
Oh,
while you're doing laundry or something else. That's fine.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
absolutely. I mean,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
how people do podcasts in general, right? But I mean, I'm still not breaking any new ground here.
When
but,
you're walking, when you're out walking your dog, I think that's perfect.
Right.
I think that's fine. When you're making a long commute to work.
I want listeners to be like not actually actively listening, but then occasionally would be like, "What did they just say?
Did they just
something?"
say?
Right.
Wait, was
That's
that
the most
something
ridiculous take on a movie I've ever heard.
Was that something smart, right? Or completely
No.
asinine? Yeah, right. Definitely one of those two things.
All right, so how are we going to break into these? Which ones are we going to go in?
We're
chronological
yes,
order. Or
yes,
how do you want to do?
Yes, no, we're going
Okay,
chronologically. Yeah. And I think that is the only real way to do it. So we're going to start with Scarecrow.
You think crows are scared of a scarecrow? Crows are laughing.
Crows are laughing.
That's right. Crows fly by, they see that, makes them laugh. Up behind you, Tubin! Eat cantaloupe! You big-legged rhinoceros!
Behold, the captains of industry, the prospective owners of Maxie's Car Wash, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Maybe Maxie's Car Wash.
Car wash.
Yeah.
Okay.
For every car, there is dirt.
Max and Lion. The only difference between them and the Rockefellers is a few $100 million and about 1,500 miles. First off, there's Max.
I gotta tell you something about me. I'm about the meanest son alive, you know what I mean?
Yeah?
I don't trust anybody. I don't love anybody. Hey, we're gonna be partners, okay?
Okay.
All right, come on.
Max did 6 years in prison for beating the hell out of a guy, and it didn't teach him a thing.
Okay, all right.
No, Max.
Just one way.
Max.
One way, get out.
Believe it or not, Max is the brains of the partnership.
Allow me. Plastic pipe for durability. $600.
And then there's Lion.
I think your specialty is going to be waxing.
Waxing?
No, and keeping the customers happy.
Lion figures if you can make somebody laugh, you won't ever need to fight.
What did you call
Stupid broad.
Get out of here.
Hey, Max! Hey, Max!
Lion is a scarecrow.
That's right. Crows are laughing. No, you don't have to hit people. Not if you make them laugh. No, crows are not scared, believe me.
The crows are scared.
No.
And the,
Crows are laughing.
crows are laughing, right? You know, in the joint, I heard some tales, man. Oh, boy, howdy. I heard some tall tales. You're not playing with a full deck, man.
It's been 5 years. You know, your wife might be married. She might have moved away. Why don't you give her a call?
Look, I want to see my kid, right? What am I going to do? Shove the lamp through the phone?
Sure. Send the money and see the world.
Annie, please. Look, let me come over.
I don't want to see you.
Max and Lion, the prospective owners of Maxie's Car Wash. All they have to do is get to Pittsburgh. But between California and Pennsylvania, there are a lot of ups
Drinks on the house for everybody!
and a lot of downs. Max and Lion, the future owners of Maxie's Car Wash, Pittsburgh, PA.
I had him laughing, didn't I? Huh? You know, we're gonna have out of this mama car wash.
A scarecrow.
That's why.
An ex-con, this is 1973, an ex-con drifter with a penchant for brawling is amused by a homeless ex-sailor, so they partner up as they head east together.
Do you think Scarecrow comes out too late in this kind of not necessarily genre of film, but like this style of film where you've already had Easy Rider, you've already had Midnight Cowboy, these kind of two down on their luck, on the fringes of society dudes, white dudes kind of making their way through, whatever kind of Americana land, And I just feel like Scarecrow should be talked about more. And maybe it's because it's not necessarily from a prestige, but the two performances in this are insanely good. I think, and it has that same sort of like meandering way about it that those other films had. But I feel like I don't really understand. I know it gets its props, and I know it's well regarded. I just don't understand like why we don't have this one at the forefront when we talk about Hackman movies. Like this is not the one that like people really kind of gravitate towards because like. And again, it's hard because we didn't necessarily grow up with early era Hackman, right? We weren't around, so like it's hard to like kind of see his transition in film. But this one seems wildly different than the things that have come before it. This one kind of gives him the most to go on. One of his really kind of first starring roles, and he's so just like amazingly good in it. I will say the movie itself is probably. I don't necessarily. I think the performances outweigh the actual movie itself.
Sure,
I think it gets a little like while I'm in it. I think while I'm in it, like the story is heavy enough, and I think the way that it kind of unfolds is amazing. But then when I'm kind of sat with the ending, just kind of like is a little jarring for me. And we can walk through it. But just your thoughts on like why this one is not necessarily like. In a Criterion collection, or why directors, when they go into the closet, go, "Hey, why isn't Scarecrow here?"
Yeah, I don't know, and I've heard this described as a mix between Of Mice and Men and Midnight Cowboy, and I think that's about right? And I know you mentioned Midnight Cowboy and Easy Rider, and those. I think though that corollary is good, or that kind of comparison is good. I mean, I think this one has something a little more gritty to it, and I think that closer to Midnight Cowboy than to Of Mice and Men. And I think that maybe that, I don't know, was the appetite for that kind of film. Because this is not as funny as it is. It's not really funny, right? It is a very kind of, I think, tough look at what these two guys go through, or what people like this would have gone through, trying to make their way across the country, being in jail and talking about, being in prison, like it's no big deal. Like it's just, this is what it does. And I'm going to go open a car wash. Right. I also think that, that for me, so I came to this movie after having seen The Panic on Needle Park, right. Directed by the same guy, directed by Jerry Schatzberg. And I mean, I came across The Panic on Needle Park because I was on a kind of bender and I was up for like 3 days straight, and I watched, which is sort of like, I guess, the best time to watch The Panic on Needle Park. But seeing Pacino in that role, right, when I was still pretty young, I was like in my early 20s, seeing Pacino in that role and kind of not being used to that Pacino, right, made me then want to go find other things like that, and that led me to Scarecrow, but I think my point is that those two films share a similar temperature and a similar flavor, right? And that like there's never gonna be really a happy ending in these films, like kind of no matter what happens. So I mean, I do think that we just don't have like as much maybe tolerance for those kind of films that maybe we once did, right? I mean, even Hackman's character is this kind of. He might seem, I think on some level he's lovable, but also we understand how dangerous and how much of a menace he actually is. And so there's that real, there's that real sense of danger and violence that I don't know. I don't think we see nearly like enough, frankly.
Yeah, this and another movie that obviously I think this is not off-brand for us, but it feels like an interesting precursor for Mikey and Nikki, right? I mean, this feels like another one of those. Yeah, and this feels more akin to me. That feels more akin. This feels more akin to that. I think Of Mice and Men, I get that, but I do feel like it gives a little a little disservice to Pacino's character in that sense, because he's not quite mentally handicapped. He does have, but what's hard for me in this movie is because everyone in the 70s looks like they're 50 years old, regardless of how old they are. Right. And we're used to Pacino being older, right? Just in general. I mean, that it's hard for me to picture him as a 20-year-old kid, because he doesn't really look like a 20-year-old kid in this movie, which is what he would have been, right? He would have been somebody who joined the Navy because he got some girl pregnant and wanted to, and he had no other way to make money and left. And then, finds himself out of the Navy and trying to come back home 5 years later. So it's hard for me. So he's 23 at this point, probably, or 22, something along those lines. He doesn't feel like he's 20. Although the performance is great, it's just hard for me in my head to just kind of wrap my head around Pacino being younger in this one.
Every young period, right?
Right. It's like I do hope that people go back though and watch A Panic in Needle Park and Scarecrow and just to see what Pacino was like before we got to 1990, before we got to A Sin of a Woman Pacino, right? Which is I think the really left turn for his career where he wins the Oscar and then this is everything we get out of him is fucking to the rafters, right? It's just hoo-ah, and she's got a great big ass, and you got your head way up it. It's that. It's just that. And look, I like that kind of Pacino as well, but it's not. But this subdued, really, really kind of shows what he was all about. Because this feels more like a role that would have gone to somebody like Hoffman, because Hoffman carries himself with a smaller frame than Pacino ever did, right? Because Pacino, even though he's a smaller guy, he still seems larger than life and everything else that he's done. But yeah, this felt like this probably would have gone to Hoffman at some point. I know Hackman and Hoffman were classmates at the Pasadena Playhouse
and roommates for a while as well.
And roommates, right? and so so I think Pacino is the real in this movie to me the real revelation because he's so vulnerable in this and plays such a what we would become to know as an off-type character, not in that era necessarily, because this falls in line with with something like fucking what's the one where he does the sex change? I can't think of the name. Where he's trying to buy the sex change for his partner.
Dog Day Afternoon.
Yes, thank you. I would have never been able to pull that for whatever reason. It just was not in my head at the moment.
Attica.
I had Attica, and I had Serpico in my head, and I knew those were. It was anyway. Right. It feels more akin to that performance as well. But I think that kind of sunken back into yourself, is there's a moment in this movie where I think the big set piece when Hackman is in the bar doing the striptease. Yeah. And all of the time up until the movie, up until that point, Pacino's been able to get Hackman back by acting like Hackman does in that scene, by acting a little crazy, acting a little off the wall. And there's this moment where the camera focuses on Pacino, and as he's watching Hackman basically take over his persona, and realize that it's just this moment where he just kind of shrinks, right? Mm-hmm. He just kind of realizes that his life is small, that he's always going to take second fiddle. I don't know. I'm sure you can interpret it a million different ways, however you want to bring to it, right?
I was going to say, wait, can I? So I want to talk about that.
Yeah, please.
I want to talk about that scene because it's really good and it shows, I think, kind of like you're saying the growth and kind of culmination of both of these characters. Where, I think Pacino his character is sort of sinking into himself and realizing, okay, I am small, my life is small. But also, I think he realized up until this point, right, Hackman's character in the situation he was in would not have done the striptease. He would have punched someone, right? So he's kind of jawing with this guy at a bar, and every time we see this happen before in the movie, he starts a fight. And Pacino's like, what are you doing? Like, why do you always do this, right? And the whole thing about Scarecrow in the title is that Pacino's like, the crows aren't scared, right? They're not scared of the Scarecrow. The Scarecrow makes them laugh, right? The Scarecrow, makes them laugh, and that's why they leave, right? And so in this moment, right, Hackman finally takes that advice, right, to heart and shows Pacino's character that, I can do this, I can sort of change, I can be like your friend in this way. Now, I do think it does have that kind of, effect on Pacino of going, maybe, this was my role in this friendship and now that's changed as well. But he's also just had this terrible traumatic experience, in prison or in jail. And then finding out that he thought he had a child, right? Which he does, but then his former wife or former partner, lies about it and says that she had a miscarriage. So he's going through that kind of traumatic experience, which leads to the breakdown at the end of the film too. So yeah, I mean, I think it's working in like so many different ways, which is what makes it such a great scene.
Yeah, that just a side note. Whoever the casting person was, it looked like they cloned young Pacino. Like that kid looked just like Al Pacino. If it was not Al Pacino's kid, kudos to whoever.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of kids look like Al Pacino, I'm sure, but like just in general.
Maybe
but that kid was
just really are Al Pacino's kids.
There's that, and that's I think what again the sum of the parts in this movie are greater than the whole. But I think maybe that's the ultimate reason why this movie is not really talked about as much. Is although I would kind of feel the same way about Midnight Cowboy, but there is a more of a narrative in Mikey and Nicky. There's more of a narrative in Easy Rider. There's more of a narrative in Midnight Cowboy. In this one, it really is you're just following these men on this, this weird happenstance quest that they happen to meet each other on different sides of the road. Pacino has a match for Hackman's cigar, and then they go off on this journey to get to Hackman's money, essentially.
Yeah.
So and they and then it's just a comedy of it's not really a comedy, but like you said before, but it's this comedy of errors as we go from scene to scene, and where Hackman's constantly either getting himself in trouble or getting himself into a fight. Like I said, there's so much to this movie, but when they get to, is it St. Louis where the women are, or is it somewhere near there? I think they go St. Louis after they get to the two women. I can't remember now exactly. I know St. Louis is mentioned at some point, but I could never really figure out exactly how far it was going to take them to get across to Pittsburgh.
So they've got to get to Detroit, which is where Pacino's
kid is.
But I feel like, but it wasn't. Was it St. Louis or was it Minnesota, where his sister is?
I
forget. Yeah, but it's like they take this, or Denver, isn't it?
Maybe.
But yeah, anyway, it's like this circuitous route to get to Pittsburgh, right? And they kind of go this way, that way, end up in jail, then they go over there. But it's like this, like it's a road movie, and I think like the purest sense, in that what we get is a series of vignettes of this trip, right? And yeah, it's a stitched together narrative. There's not really a kind of cohesive through line.
There's I don't know where to like kind of start and end the beginning with this, but there's so many like, where Hackman's talking about how sex keeps him regular, and like, and then like, Pacino's like, well, you were in prison, and when did you get sex? And they just kind of stare at one another at the end. He just
stops. But this is why they're so good together. I mean, I really do like both of these performances in so many different ways. I mean, and this is, like you said, this is why it's worth going back to watch these old, films, especially for Pacino, because you don't get that from him after a certain point. You just get like larger than life. You don't see the restraint. You don't see the nuance. You don't see, the face work, right?
Right. You also like, I know we talk about this, and everyone talks about it, but like this is a movie that like, it would be hard pressed to find a counterpoint currently, right? I mean, like, there's no movie that lets any of this sit,
right?
Like this movie does. Like Hackman's constantly wearing all of his clothes, and he's like, and he says it's to keep him warm, but he has no other way to take them around, right? It's not,
right?
He's like, I keep going back to King of the Road, the song King of the Road. This like felt like like a movie version of King of the Road. It's just they're moving from place to place. They've got this idea of starting up a car wash, and Hackman's got all these like, you need 100 buckets and you need all these things and the
right kind of sponges.
Right. He's got $2,600 in a bank somewhere. I mean, obviously in Pittsburgh, but they get to his sister. One of the other girls there falls, and then like Pacino's like, "Why don't we just stay here? Like this is like we could figure out, we could do life here. This is like we have people who love
car
us.
Wash here, yeah."
And Hackman was like, once, and this is Hackman's whole MO, right? And this is why he fights as much as he does, is because once you set your mind to something, when you've said you're going to do something, that's what we're going to do. Yep. By damned anything else that's going to happen, I'm going to set out and we're going to get this car wash, or it's going to kill me, essentially. And then he doesn't, but there's so many layers to this. Like, what would Hackman have done if Pacino hadn't have come along, or they hadn't have stumbled upon each other? Like, because Hackman doesn't really seem to be overly concerned about getting to
his money,
Pittsburgh. Like, he doesn't really seem to be concerned about when he ends up going to jail. It was more important for him to fight that guy than it was to go to jail. I mean, than it was to get his money. So he ended up with a month in prison, which actually and obviously ends up hurting Pacino in that case.
Yeah. But this is, I mean, Hackman's MO in the movie, but also like so many of the characters that Hackman plays are like this guy, right? In very and I think it's that like dedication of, no, I said I'm going to do this, and so now I have to do it, and I got to figure out a way, no matter if it kills me or not, right? Every one of his characters is like that,
right? Yeah, especially almost in all of these movies, actually.
Yeah, right.
They're all right. He basically could have walked from one set to the other set.
But I never feel like, I don't know about you, but I never feel like I'm watching the same performance.
No, that's what's so odd about Hackman, right? Is because he's clearly a presence, right? And there's always this sounds simplistic to say, but there's always a Hackman-ness to his being in a movie. But he is weirdly a chameleon in a lot of ways, in the sense that he kind of you always are in the realization that you're watching Hackman, but you're also never taken out of the movie like you are in Pacino's later roles, right? Where I'm like, oh, I'm watching Hoo-Ah, right? I mean, right. In these cases, like, I don't ever get taken back by like, oh, I believe Hackman is all of these characters. Yeah. He's just not a Hackman doing Hackman things in a movie.
I saw a clip of Hackman on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. This would have been like right after the conversation. He was there for the conversation. And, this is back when all the guests stayed out, right, on the other seats, as other people came out. So he's next to George Carlin, and I can't remember who was the next to Carlin, but that guy leaned over and he goes, I got to tell you, Gene, you're one of my favorite actors, because every time I see you, like, I know it's you, but I forget it's you, and you just inhabit that role. He goes, it's not like watching Robert Redford, because you always know, because he's so beautiful, that it's Robert Redford. Hackman was just kind of like, yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
But Hackman was notorious for never watching his roles, because, and I think this is, obviously very human and like how we all feel, but he was like, I picture myself in a certain way, and then when I see that guy, who's got kind of a belly and crow's feet and he's got a receding hairline, that's not the guy that I picture in my head. So it's hard for me to watch these. I'm like, yeah, okay, I feel that for sure, yeah. Gene. Yeah.
Did you know that this film at one point was going to star Bill Cosby and Jack Lemmon?
So Bill is the former. Wait, how would that work?
I would think. I would see Lemmon in the Pacino role and Cosby in the Hackman role. I mean, just like
put all of Cosby's shit aside, which I know is hard to do, but put all of Cosby's shit aside. Like, he's not a good actor.
No,
like
no,
no. He's.
I didn't
he's
say
a
I thought he'd be
comedian
interesting.
No, I'm just trying to think, like, if he's in the Pacino role, then everything is ham-fisted. It's all awful.
Yep. Yeah.
I can see Lemmon pulling off the Hackman role.
Okay.
Although I think even Lemmon at this point is still too old. But I can see. Here's the thing. I can't really see Lemmon being a pugilist, though. It's
right.
With Hackman, you feel like he's grizzled enough. Like, and no one in the 70s is really cut. Like, so I mean, like, you just figure a guy who knows how to fight, right? He's just a guy who's around. He probably knows how to throw a punch or two. And even if he doesn't know how to fight, he's still angry and drunk most of the time, right? I mean,
which protects you in a different way.
Right. Man, that would have been terrible. And awful, this would have been awful. I mean, it would have been something to like talk about, like, but yeah, it would have been. Yeah. Would have been, and like, I wonder how much the script would have changed, because again, like, really, Cosby certainly can't pull off the emotional gravitas at the end of this movie. So finally we get to Detroit, and Hackman takes on this fatherly role to Pacino, and is like, they're about to go to they're at a phone booth, and he's like, look, you realize, right? You left because you thought it was the right thing to do. You realize now it wasn't the right thing to do. He's kind of giving this like weird pep talk, but also then telling him like, yeah, you fucked up, and it's okay that you fucked up. You're going to make it right now. You're going to make it right. You're going to go do this. You're going to call your kid. And this entire time, like Pacino's been carrying this like ridiculous lamp in a box. So it's a present for his 5-year-old kid who he doesn't know if it's a boy or a girl. And he gets on this phone call with the mother of his child, and she's got curlers in her hair. She's got a shirt that says the Banana King on the back of it, and she's married some guy. And she's like flabbergasted that she's getting this call. Yeah. Almost to the point where like she's happy, but also only happy because now she can kind of lay into him. And let him know all these things that she's been harboring for 5 years. That sequence is heartbreaking, obviously. Yeah. And the 5-year-old almost answers the phone, and she comes and gets the phone. And then she tells, like we said before, she tells Pacino that the child died. That she fell. I think she said they fell down the stairs, or she fell.
She said, "You weren't here. You weren't here, and so I fell down the stairs. And again, you weren't here to help me back up, and so I lost the baby." It's a really tough beat, man. That she
right. Yeah, and she's like, I'm sitting, and basically her whole thing was like, then she lost the baby, and the baby's in purgatory, in limbo, because it wasn't able to be baptized. It was never
baptized.
And
again, because he wasn't there, because he left.
Right. And she's like, yeah, I'm married. I'm Mrs. Banana King, and I look like an old woman, and like. Yeah, you have to figure, like, I mean, being young and obviously having to take care of a single mom. I get that. But her life wouldn't have turned out much better had Pacino still been around, right? I mean, it wasn't like she.
But you get the feeling that like she missed him, right?
Yes.
And I mean that's
she didn't want to be married to Banana King, right? That was a guy that stepped in probably and took advantage of a situation of a young mother who needed anybody, right?
Yeah, it's tough. And then of course he just goes and he starts playing with kids in the fountain.
Right. And then
parents freak out, and then he just kind of like loses it.
Goes catatonic. And at that point, Hackman is, basically take him to the hospital. Hackman has a kind of a moment where like snap out of this and shakes him, and kind of makes a resolution to take care of him at the moment. Like, I'm going to come back. So he goes off to Pittsburgh to go get his money, and we're at a train station, and he's buying a ticket, or a bus station, I guess. He's buying a ticket to Pittsburgh, and the lady asks him his return, is the return is a
round trip,
is a two-way ticket, a round trip. Thank you.
Yeah,
can't get to fucking Dog Day Afternoon, or he can't get round trip out today.
That's why I'm here. I'm here to support.
Right,
you.
And he doesn't have enough money to pay for the ticket. But he pries open his. I thought that was a great.
That was so good.
Scene.
Yeah,
it's he has the ticket's $27.95, and he doesn't have enough money, and so he pulls off his shoe, gets a knife out, and like pries open the heel, and a $10 bill slides out. And as he gives the money to get the ticket to the teller, he's banging his shoe on the desk to get it to go back down. And that's the end of the movie, which I think is awesome. I think it's so good.
And I love that the boot comes back, because when they first meet up and they get off and they kind of stay at like a hostel or something, right? He lies down and he takes his shoe off and puts it behind his pillow, behind his head. And Pacino's like, "What's up with the shoe? Like, what's up with the boot?" And he doesn't say anything, but I love that it comes back. I thought that was just great. Yeah. Before filming, Hackman and Pacino dressed up as hobos and hitchhiked around California.
God damn.
Yeah, and Hackman argued with everyone on set. Everyone, even his brother, who was there as like a stand-in, his like stunt stand-in.
Yeah, I feel like I know as one passes, the accolades come up, like, but I feel like Hackman had to have been a bastard most of the time, right?
Sure,
I mean,
sure.
Yeah, it's just
This is one of his favorite roles that he ever did.
Yeah, and I think he was disappointed that it didn't do well box office wise. It was a flop. I think
it did well overseas. Like it did critical acclaim. It won basically what we now consider like the Grand Prix or the Palme d'Or. It can, yeah. I mean, so critics saw it at least overseas and was like, oh yeah, this is great. But yeah, here it was a flop. It sucked. Well, we don't think so.
Right, and I think, like I said, I think it just came too late in the game. I think for whatever reason, had it have been the first one of these, or had it come out right after Easy Rider, a few years earlier, I think maybe it makes more of an impact.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, by you said 73, right? That
this was 73.
Counterculture had shifted.
Right. Well, I mean, because like Midnight Cowboy is 69, right? Panic on Needle Park is 71. Easy Rider is 69 as well. Is that right?
Yeah.
So, like, it's just a couple years off, right? I think, if it was 70, 71, and when Bonnie and Clyde was what?
That was much for earlier. Not like a lot earlier, but it was, it was 68, wasn't it?
Okay. But it was right around there. I mean is, like, it was kind of at the fore of, I don't want to, like, just say, like, New Hollywood, right? But I mean, it was. But, like, at the fore of these kind of films, because, Hackman also being in that,
I don't really know like how Panic in Needle Park was received either, and how
I don't think very well.
Did.
I mean, and Panic
as far as box office numbers,
right. And Panic was written by Joan Didion and John Gregory Dunn, who are two of my absolute fucking favorite writers ever. Which just like still blows my mind that those two wrote that screenplay, because that movie is dark, man. That movie is. That's tough.
That's rough.
It is so fucking rough. I mean, poor Kitty Wynn, Jesus.
And it's so like things like this fall through the crack. Obviously, I think that's our fault. The cracks. It's not. Because you think of something like, you talk about Panic in Needle Park, and then and that one's more well known than something like Out of the Blue, which is
sure.
Similar in vibe, not necessarily similar in storyline. But I mean, like, there's all these kind of like things that like these great films that either go that have just been forgotten or they're just going to go unnoticed. I don't necessarily know if Scarecrow is forgotten. But again, I don't feel like, I think Panic in Needle Park and Scarecrow are like both dying for like a really good boutique Blu-ray release. Though. That seems like that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, I'm gonna get on that.
Sounds like you got it. So
yeah.
All right. So
So let's
Night Moves.
Yeah, let's move on to Night Moves. But I did want to say that, I mean, you said earlier that this is not a film that we see like being made now, and I don't think any of these films like really are. Maybe fucking loose cannons, but these other three, like, I don't think we see these types of movies anymore. So
I put a pin in it, but I think like Loose Cannons, like you could pitch that as a Kevin Hart rock vehicle, right?
That's what I mean. Yeah, and we'll talk about some of the things that I think don't age well in that film. But yeah. All right, let's get to Arthur Penn's Night Moves, 1975.
Well, I think Harry would like me to leave.
Well, I don't think that's necessary.
I think Harry thinks it is.
Harry thinks if you call him Harry one more time, he's going to make you eat that cat.
Gene Hackman is Harry Mosby
Hello, Harry.
in Night Moves.
Oh, come on, take a swing at me, Harry, the way Sam Spade would.
He's a private investigator.
My daughter, Deli. Would you believe Delilah? Well, she's gone.
How long gone?
2 weeks. Go find her.
Making a living
Well, let's say 125 a day and legitimate expenses.
from other people's lives.
You can get cheaper.
Can I get better? You're hired.
Making a mess of his own.
God, you're really prime, Ellen. You know that? I catch you screwing another guy and you attack my lifestyle!
Lifestyle has nothing to do with it.
Night Moves. It's a mystery
I'm looking for Deli Grassner.
Deli isn't around here anymore.
where the suspects are also the victims.
I want to know what I walked into.
Ask your wife.
Well, are we going to talk about it?
But it's your ball, run with it.
Where the questions
All right, what's it all about, Mosby?
Is there still much smuggling going on around here?
The dogs have fleas.
Where were you when Kennedy got shot?
have too many answers.
where every clue is a lie.
I've been listening to your ping-pong talk long enough. What was in Marv Elman's plane? Drugs? Was it drugs?
Night Moves.
Check. Check.
Ah, it's a beauty.
It's a game where every player is a pawn.
Harry Mosby, isn't it?
Every move is a wrong one. And the winner loses everything.
I want to know what it's all about.
I told you what it's all about.
You, what the hell are you all about?
You're asking the wrong question.
Gene Hackman in Night Moves.
Los Angeles private investigator Harry Mosby is hired by a client to find her runaway teenage daughter. Mosby tracks the daughter down only to stumble upon something much more intriguing and sinister.
Doesn't it feel like there should be more of there should be a whole series of Harry Mosby films?
Yes.
Like what a great character this he is. Like this ex-Oakland Raider who's turned ex-AFL era Oakland Raider, right? Not even pre-merger turned private, California private eye is such a great just premise. It just feels like this should be like our Bond, right? I mean, there should have been characters that have gone across. Like Sinatra should have played this early on, in one of his roles, and then this comes over to Hackman to take on a different take on it, and then eventually Malkovich does it, and it's
Jesus,
and you could have just made it this period piece grouping of films. But man, I love that the whole setup of this. Obviously, private eye films, I think, especially in the 70s, are so great because they're always just like guys who have stale beer cans on their on their coffee table, and then and they're eating it with breakfast. That was another thing that was going back to Scarecrow real quick, was when he ordered the breakfast and he's like, also I wanted some chocolate ice cream and a beer with this. As Pacino's eating cornflakes.
Yeah. I love the ice cream and beer. Oh.
But yeah, this guy who has all these connections to California cops and this whole world of being a PI, and then being the best at it, right? And when he's interviewing Melanie Griffith's mom, and he's like, you can find cheaper, and she's like, can I find better? And he doesn't really answer, but still.
It's like, maybe. I don't know.
But I love these. I love these noir films that are set in the 70s because they just feel so you can almost feel the lack of air conditioning and the greasy movie. Burgers and right, yeah. I mean, when's the last time you saw someone with pits with pit stains in a film
that go down to his ribs, right? Right. I mean, they weren't just pit stains; they went all the way down to his ribs, and I love that he notices them. In the movie, he's just kind of he looks. He's like, it's hot.
It's California. It's on a sweaty Florida swamp. It's going to be hot out here.
Yeah, I know. I really love this film. I think what I love most about this film is that it's not. I think like any good noir, right? It's not really about solving the crime or finding the girl, right? This is so much about Hackman figuring himself out, right? His desire to solve the case is also about avoiding the issues in his own life, right? I've got to go do this, right? I've got to go take care of this because I can't deal with this right now. And it's this, again, but a thing that he's dedicated to figure out, right? I'm going to find this out, so I'm not going to stop, even though, right, there's one last piece. I just have to keep going. But of course, it's just him, right, avoiding his own shit, right, and trying to figure out what to do about these things. It's not about the case at all.
No, and that's another thing that you're absolutely right. It's just so much. It's so great. Is that I feel like what that as you kind of merge from these 40s noir to the like all of those 70s more kind of had that exact same thing, right? Where they're just they're dogged, they're dogged against this case, but only because their personal lives are just in turmoil.
Yeah,
like they're
but
just
also,
in shambles.
But what I also really like is that that shambles, that turmoil is never. It's always like a human turmoil, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's emotional. They're not addicts. They're not abusive. They're not. They're not pieces of shit. They're like these real humans with these like real human problems, and that's the turmoil. It's existential.
This film, like, so Harry takes this case to find a young actress, and basically he's needing to find the young actress because her mom is living off of that actress. Well, she's not even an actress. Right? She's just a young girl.
She's the daughter of like was her father like a producer? Because the mother was an actress. So. The mother was an actress, and I think I think that's what it was.
Talking about how great she looked in the past. That's the other thing about this movie is too. It's like everyone here is so like damaged.
Every single
person. Even Melanie Griffith, right, is horrifically damaged in some way.
Absolutely.
And it's got such a ridiculous and great MacGuffin with the Native American or not Native American, but these native artifacts that they're trying to sell on the black market because the government's not interested in them at the moment, so they can get away. They can get all this money. But he takes this case to find this girl, and in doing and hunting down her boyfriend, he stumbles upon the fact that his wife is actually having an affair with
Harris
on
Ewan.
him. Yes, yeah, and then he goes and confronts him, but then he finds the boyfriend. The boyfriend says he's not been with the girl for a while. She's run off with a stuntman. It's taken her to Florida to work on this movie. She's living with her stepdad in Florida as well. She's this, young, ridiculously young sex pot in this case, which is the problematic portion of Night Moves is that Melanie Griffith is so very young. I guess there had to have been. I mean, I know she comes from an acting background, right? So there had to have been something. And again, I know it's in the 70s, right? Also, but like, how did they? Is it just? I mean, there had to have been some sort of waivers signed, or like there's something to let this like.
I'll tell you. So they waited until she was 18 to shoot the nude scenes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I heard
back.
that they waited until the release. I just thought they waited to the release. I didn't know that those scenes were actually filmed when she was 18. Oh, okay, that makes more sense. Then. It doesn't make it any less creepy, but it's
nope.
But hadn't Melanie Griffith been naked in Smile, or was this her first film and then she was naked in Smile? Okay, so she was also the naked in Smile.
Yes, yeah.
Which is still creepy even in Smile. Smile's a great film too, but
they're clearly exploiting her, right? And I think both of those films. And what I think is interesting there is that her mother, right, the older actress, was like, when I was her age, I was on my knees to most of the men in this town. And you're just like, fucking shit. Like, I mean, so it's like they're almost kind of acknowledging this as well. That, this is what this industry does.
Right. And I mean, I love James Woods in this. Like it bothered right? it sucks so much that James is just a shitty person. Again, be conservative, fine. But being a crackpot asshole conservative is just fucking terrible. Because he is like, and occasionally Diggstown is corny as fuck. But like whenever Diggstown is on, it's a stop down for me. Like I hate the scene. I hate the scene where Louis Gossett Jr. like he's going to throw in the towel because he's getting his ass kicked by whatever. And he catches it. But I hate it because it's done in slow motion. It's such a cheeseball scene that like James Woods is like catches it back and is like no. And it's so overwrought. But everything else about that film, I mean, it's just an easy film to watch. And
James Wood thought it was going to like be an Apollo Creed moment, so of course he was upset.
Yeah, probably. But he's so good in this. Like he's so like smarmy and just I don't know, man. They had such a great look to him, and he's so good in this.
Dude, Jennifer Warren is smoking in this movie. Oh my God.
And like we're supposed to believe that she's kind of like a road weary, like, you know, world weary woman who's like doesn't have it anymore.
Right. Sure. Okay.
And
good God.
Like I love when they're sitting on the boat together after everything is kind of revealed, right? And it's revealed that you know, they're basically just knocking people off because they don't want anybody to reveal where this $500,000 relic is that's sunken at the bottom of the sea. And they're on the boat together, and she's kind of like lamenting about how she's, you know, how far in deep she's gotten into this and how it's all coming about. And Hackman's like, yeah, you've been talking to me about your erect nipples. Like that was like, I just love that line. You're just like, and she's kind of like taken aback, like where she's like, don't be mean. Like we had a moment together. Don't be mean. She's like a very like vulnerable moment where, that scene actually I think is really great. Like that sequence where she's talking about, and she's kind of like, you know, talking about how her life hasn't turned out the way that she thought it was going to turn out. And then she's ended up with these, like, she's with this older man who like has a young stepdaughter who he's clearly like, if not, right, yeah. If he's not sleeping with her, he's like flirting with her at least, like in a weird and inappropriate way.
What did he say? He said, you know, I got a little too. He says something about like fooling around with Deli. That's the character's name. But he was like, you know, I maybe got in, you know, a little trouble with Deli, or maybe fooled around too much. I don't know. But it was the code for I've been sleeping with her. So, which is gross.
But that sequence where she talks about the first time that someone's ever touched her breast and that her nipple stayed hard for 30 minutes afterwards, and Hackman's like, "Well, that was really sweet." And she's like, "Yeah, no, it's not. It's not sweet. It's just it's sad. This is where I'm at in my life. Is that's not, you know, that's how longing for attention that I was even then." I don't know, that kind of disconnect between two people, and Hackman obviously in his own head about his own marriage falling apart, and him like having to like, he's already at this point, I guess he hasn't decided that he's going to give up his practice, you know, because after that's happened, after he sleeps with somebody else, he's married. He goes back and tells his wife, he's like, look, I'm going to give it up. I don't need this anymore. Let's work on us. But I think there's so many like human moments in this movie that like really Hackman brings so much gravitas to. But like when he first meets, when he first sees his wife cheating on him, or at least going out with a man, he goes to the man's house and confronts him. And it's this great moment of like the man kind of just like, this is all your fault, dude. This is like, and like you she told me all about you, and it fucking, god damn, I was sitting there going, holy shit, how is Hackman not like losing his fucking mind here? Like,
well, and I love just the back and forth between them is great, because he's like, Hackman confronts him, and Harris Yulin is like, well, you should ask her, and he's like, I'm asking you. But I just like that quick snapback, like, yeah, sure, but I'm here talking to you, so just answer the fucking question. But yeah, and Harris Yulin, like, this was a time in this country of ours where a man like Harris Yulin could snake your girlfriend.
Hey, I think he's kind of hot in this movie, actually. Like, I mean, like, he's like, I don't know, he's got kind of a law type sinewy to himself, and I don't know, he's just got that kind of confidence. He goes back and he plays the piano. He lives on the beach. He's got a cat.
Right. But like my point, my serious point is that like we don't see this casting in films anymore, right? I mean, and I hate to kind of keep going like back in the day, but like we don't see leading men like Gene Hackman in a film like this, right? If this is made today, it's somebody much prettier, somebody much more fit and trim, right? Yeah, they're a former athlete, but they look like Aldous Hodge, right? I mean, they're like just like still ripped, right? Instead of this kind of like doughy, kind of like middle-aged guy, and then like the guy who's cucking you doesn't look like Harris Yulin, right? He looks like Harris Dickinson. I mean, it's like something, right?
And Jennifer Warren is with with another guy who's like, that dancing scene is like so depressing. I know. It's like so indicative, like of like it just goes and like is a wonderful emphasis, right, of like what her life has been, and she like reluctantly starts to dance maybe not even reluctantly, but just like kind of unconsciously starts to dance in this moment of like, and Hackman just kind of has to like scoot around them and walk out of that scene.
So good. So apparently, wait, where's my note? The chess bit, right, where Hackman's character plays chess, and Jennifer Warren asks him like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "There was this match at some point, and this guy had checkmate in like 3 moves, but he didn't see it. Right? He didn't see it, and so he ended up losing this match, and it haunted him for the rest of his life. I mean, which is clearly about like, Mosby and what he doesn't see, and what's going on with people closest around him." But so Penn added that, and so the night moves was meant to be a homophone, right? With the N and the KN, and yeah. I love the ending of this film too, and how like and I was so I mean I'd seen this film more than once before, and I don't think I ever realized that the boat is just going in circles.
In circles,
right? I always thought it was like him going back towards shore. But then watching it again, I'm like, oh no, it's just gonna go around and around.
Yeah, he's gonna bleed out. Basically.
Yeah. He's either gonna maybe the Coast Guard's gonna pick him up, but probably not, right? And we just like with that helicopter shot, just kind of keep going out and out and out, and that's it. I think it's a great ending. I mean, to a film where so much shit is going on.
It's also a brutal ending, right? I mean, like to the point where like. The only other movie that I can think of that has that one of 70s war that has this type of like violence in it is kind of like Silent Partner, where this where she gets essentially decapitated. Jennifer Warren's character essentially gets decapitated in the ocean,
and then Mosby's
by a prop
friend,
plane,
right? And Mosby's stuntman friend is in on it too, and then he's drowning.
Right. Yeah. He drowns. The only person that and no one gets out unscathed because Melanie Griffith gets taken back home, right?
And she dies.
A situation. Right. Oh, yes, that's true because she dies in the car. She
gets a SAG card and becomes a stunt like actor and dies in the wreck. Yeah.
Right. And supposedly because Quentin probably cut the brakes because he was wanting to hurt her.
Right.
Right. I mean, the whole thing's fucked.
That's right. And James Wood dies. He gets found in the dolphin pit. Right? Don't fuck with those dolphins.
Right.
I'm telling you.
Which is another. I love that first opening sequence where Hackman finds Melanie Griffith and like she starts to yell, rape or whatever, and that guy comes to comes to protect her, and Hackman just pushes him in the dolphin pit, and that's all we ever see of that guy again.
So great. Yeah. Don't mess with dolphins.
Like he was just eaten by the dolphins.
No, they just held him down so he drowned. It's a lot crueler. It would have been nicer if they gnawed him to death, but no, they just pushed him down and drowned. I love this. I love this movie.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yeah, in the most depressing ways.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, you want to get to the package?
All right, let's get to the package. Let's do it.
Yeah. I will never say that like outside of this podcast. The package. This is 1989. This is directed by Andrew Davis.
It began in Berlin. A routine assignment for Sergeant John Gallagher.
There you go, Sergeant. He's all yours.
Yeah. You go to that court-martial, you better get those ribbons on your chest.
Be all you can be.
I think you're going to prison, Walter.
You don't know where I'm going.
But something went wrong.
I need your help, Eileen.
I know. They caught you climbing out the window of some lady's boudoir.
No, I lost my package. A prisoner I was bringing back from Germany.
Dead wrong.
Something weird has come upon this guy. Why would someone want to take the place of a guy going to prison?
He gets into the country without a passport.
Now he's in over his head.
From all indications, we have an agreement.
Damn it, Bob. We've exhausted the option.
This is insane.
Gallagher knows too much already. He has to be eliminated.
Ralph Burns, Arlington Police.
Somebody wants you real bad, Johnny.
What are you working for the Russians?
If he doesn't get some answers,
We've been set up.
Let's get out of here. These people can be anybody they want to be.
it may be too late.
Who are you working for?
I'm a public servant.
For everyone.
Who pays you?
Everybody pays me.
As been a world war in 50 years, Sergeant. You ever wonder why?
You're making a big mistake. Get it?
The package.
Experienced Green Beret Sergeant Johnny Gallagher is escorting a prisoner, Airborne Ranger Thomas Boyer, back to the U.S., but Boyer escapes, and Gallagher must risk life and limb to catch him. So this is like one of those common type of like late 80s films, right? It's a Cold War film where we've got this everyman, like common American male who saves the day and saves the world from the commies.
Right.
There were so many of these movies, I mean, at this time. I mean, and Iron Eagle is another one that we talked about. But I mean, I feel like this one is much smarter than most of those that we would like lump it in with. I think that this is so tight, like the script and everything, it just kind of keeps going. And like, I never feel lost. Right? I mean, this could easily be a film that I'm like, I need to go back and like, I missed something, right? But it's like, I don't miss anything.
That was Ebert's comment was like, during the movie, it felt almost too smart where I felt like maybe I was missing something, but I never was. Like everything was on screen for me. It just felt like movies like this are always leaving like some sort of like too subtle of a clue back, I should have seen that thing happen. But this is like all
Deus Ex Machina thing at the end too, right? Where this one doesn't. Yeah.
Right. And like everything you see will eventually be explained. Like it may not be explained in the moment, but eventually will be explained. And the whole plot is basically the United States and Soviet Union are coming to a summit to do a disarmament treaty. And there are forces at bay there's forces that are not being held at bay that want to stop this because they feel like the only way to keep peace is more weapons. And
makes sense.
I feel like Tommy, like there should have been more Tommy Lee Jones in this. I feel like that was the only thing that was
right. That was
like he's so good in this too.
Well,
like
there should have been more of them together.
Right.
I mean, that's
Yeah, because we don't get that until like really, for a brief moment where he has him as a prisoner, and basically this whole movie starts off with Hackman as kind of a grizzled Green Beret who's stationed in Berlin, how does this all work out? He's like the security detail.
Yeah.
For these U.S. government.
He's a squad leader, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And they end up getting killed, and he happened to see the killers. Because he got intervened by the Berlin police, or at least German police. Yeah. And so, kind of as a punishment, but not really, because we find out later that the person who's punishing him is in on the whole entire thing.
Is John Hurd.
John Hurd is
never trust
ridiculously
John
smarmy
Hurd. Never trust John
Hurd. So John Hurd uses this as the opportunity to they're going to frame Hackman throughout this entire thing, right? But also to utilize Hackman to get Tommy Lee Jones, who's an assassin, into the country, although you just think he's just a regular old prisoner. And then, of course, everything unfolds, right? Hackman, but yeah, now I kind of even forget my point, just kind of laying out the film, but everything's like so like.
It all makes sense.
What the fuck was I talking about? It, right? Yeah,
trust us. It all makes sense.
Well, going back to Hackman and Lee Jones not having enough time together. Mm-hmm. You only see them at basically from the point where they take over on the bridge, and Tommy Lee Jones punches the guy who's obviously already also in on it, and that whole thing is staged, and they get to the airport, and that's basically it. And then they don't get back together until the end. It's basically Hackman trying to figure this out with the help of his wife,
ex-wife.
But yeah, the ex-wife. True.
They did Pam Grier real dirty in this movie too.
They did that's she doesn't even get an on-screen kill. Like it's just she was crossing the street off screen and gets run over. And she's in it for maybe like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
It's kind of bizarre.
It's weird.
But I think, her star obviously would have been on a significant wane at this point. Like, I mean, so, obviously she would have just been taking roles as best she could. Dennis Franz is great in this. I think that's, that's what I love about this movie is that, and I don't ever hear anybody talking about this film, but like,
I know.
There's so many people in it that are so good, and like all the set pieces, you move from boom to one to one to one to one. They're just so well put together. It's such like I said, it's such a tight little thriller that does. Like, I mean, that's by the same guy who does The Fugitive, but it kind of feels like all of these. Like, this is one of the better
Under
ones.
Siege, and Under Siege.
Right, but only because like it feels like this one should obviously get more
right.
More notoriety than like Code of Silence or Above the Law. I know that those are. I know that those. Because one, Hackman's a bigger and better star than Chuck Norris and Steven Seagal.
Right.
Maybe not in the moment at the time,
but he's a better actor.
Especially because he's definitely a better actor. And so is Tommy Lee Jones. Everyone in this is a better.
I know.
Which makes you like kind of lament a lot of those films. I know that there's a lot of '80s canon cheese, right, and Carolco like cheese that like we, for nostalgia's sake, we look back on fondly, but think of how much better like Above the Law would have been. It hadn't not been some sort of ridiculous karate actioner, or even like I have not seen Code of Silence in forever, so I can't really remember exactly what the plot is on that one. I can remember the box because I've seen all the Chuck Norris,
of course,
basically the VHS box art. But even Under Siege, like those movies, deserved better than the wooden stiff acting of because someone who could, and especially in Seagal's case,
the worst
basically
chef
had a career because people thought it'd be funny if he had a career. And it was like let's see if we can make this asshole have a career.
Talk about a cell phone.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I mean, like. It makes me want to go back and like watch some of those just to see like what if we had put Hackman in this role where he's not worried about like we don't have to worry about a fight sequence. This one doesn't do that really until the end. There's no like action sequences in this one, and I love the end car chase in this one so ridiculous because the car just hits everything, and like it's just throughout the chase eventually just starts to fall apart.
I know, and eventually it just stops. Like he can't drive it anymore. He has to get out and like run, which I think is perfect. Right? It's just like won't go anymore. But like I mean, there's not a ton of action scenes, but again, it like never stops. Right? It's just like there's there's really like no fat on this film.
No, it's a quick hour and 39, hour and 40, and that's with credits, right? I mean, so you're in and out without much delay. I love the sequences of Tommy Lee Jones when he's gluing the dimes to the board and then uses that to like target practice. I love arrogant bad guy Tommy Lee Jones, right? That is so wonderful because he does that role so well. Like he just plays that smarmy asshole so well. But when he's like proficient at something, I don't know. There's just something about that like it's just really wonderful to see him in those types of in those roles.
Well, and I just remember that he's in Under Siege as well.
True.
Which now really, it's like now I really want to go back and see that film with a Hackman in that role, or even like somebody other than Seagal. But yeah, that'd be really interesting. Then that might be like more enjoyable than. I mean, look, Under Siege is kind of a fun movie, despite Seagal. But yeah.
But it makes you wonder, like, we don't have those types of movies anymore, right? We don't. And again, I know we say that, we keep saying this, right? But like seemingly the time for those movies has come and gone because we don't have big action stars anymore. And if we do, they go off and do silly things, right? I mean, like, but even like The Rock and Vin Diesel and those guys, they're not Schwarzenegger still, and even the B-listers like Van Damme and Seagal. And when we get things like, when we get action films today, they end up being, things either like John Wick, which are just, gun fu, or we get things like Taken or the Statham films, right?
Right.
But they're not really like these guys. So this is just guys that are going out and enacting revenge for some reason. They're not people that this diehard era of action films seems like primed to come back, right? That was
right
almost 40 years ago. Like, why wouldn't you take Statham and put him in? I mean, maybe not even Statham, because Statham's kind of played out at this point.
Right.
Not necessarily played out. I like Statham, but I think it'd be interesting to see someone like, and again, I'm going to use this name and I'm going to regret it, but like someone like Glenn Powell be in a role where like it's a serious kind of role, right? I mean, like he's the only star that come to mind that's like new and upcoming,
and
right?
He's going to do the reboot of Running Man, so
right,
maybe...
which is intriguing, right? I think because one, it's Edgar Wright, and I do think sticking closer to the Bachman short story will be way more interesting than what they ever did with it. Although from the cheesy goodness, I don't mind the Schwarzenegger one. It's dumb and it's bad, but I mean, like I grew up on it, right? But that story is an interesting story, and I'm sure there's got to be people like, give me. I don't think Pedro Pascal would probably, not Pedro Pascal, but Paul Mescal, would do something like this. But there's got to be roles for them in these types of movies that are like this. If Hackman can do something like The Package, Mescal can do something. He could do a reboot of Under Siege, right? But without making it be some sort of punch 'em up fest, right? It doesn't have to be a kick fest. It can just be Under Siege, Die Hard on a boat, right?
And that's the thing. Like, I mean, the Package is not like a huge action thing. It's not a punch 'em up. It's not a fight scene, right? I mean, there's a real story and like plot going on here. I think that's what we miss with The Beekeeper and like those action movies. There's no story, right? There's no real plot going on. That's not what's interesting. That's not what people are coming to the film for, right? It's just to see Statham kick somebody's ass like over and over and over and over again, right?
Right.
Now I was going to say something else, but now I forget. It happens.
But there's so many like little moments here, like when Francis gets shot and like Hackman's ex-wife like is with his kids at the house, and like it's like she makes him breakfast and then has to run out. Like there's so many like moments that, like in a tight movie like this that are still like I love the fact when they're going to kill, and I lose the specifics of who they're going to kill and like and why. I mean, I know why, but like when we get to the sequence of the parade and they stop the car and whoever they encourage whomever whatever the representative that's going to go to the summit to negotiate, they get him to get out of the car and he holds that baby up. And I'm thinking that's where they're going to kill him, like when he's holding up a baby.
Yep.
Like they're going to shoot the baby and shoot him.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that baby was really whiny and just its time had come.
It's time. I'm sure someone would have caught it. Like I'm sure it would have been fine. It would have come out unscathed.
Absolutely, yeah. Like the carriage scene in The Untouchables.
Right.
It would have been fine. It would have been good. All right. Anything else you want to say about The Package? Not your.
No,
package?
I mean it's on Tubi. Go watch it.
Yeah.
It's a simple watch.
Yeah.
And what I found about it, it was probably the one that I was least interested in watching out of these.
Really?
And I found myself like almost immediately intrigued. Well, because I mean, out of all the other, and that's not saying that I was not interested in seeing it. I'm just saying out of the four of these films, I had seen Loose Cannons before. I had not seen it since I probably watched it on VHS.
Had you not seen The Package before?
I had.
Okay.
But it's been a good. I probably saw it in 90 when it came out on video, basically, right? I mean, I didn't, and I probably had not revisited it since then. So seeing it on Tubi was like, oh, okay, well, this is fun. And then you forgetting portions of it. And it kind of, like I said, it blends in with all of those other films that were like. If it's not for Hackman and Tommy Lee Jones, this is a completely forgettable film.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, of course. But again, like their performance again elevates the other material as well, right? And I think Davis, at least for this film, knows how to just kind of get out of the way, right? I mean, to me, this seems like a very kind of simple workmanlike director job. with this film. Right?
Oh,
which I think is
absolutely.
great. Which I think is what this film needs, right?
And most of his films, this is what he did, right? I mean, these films didn't go too far out of the they didn't stray too far from this platform. What I would really this platform is what I said. I didn't know if I enunciated that correctly. What I would really love, like in an alternate universe, I would love to have like movies that have budgets or at least timelines that would allow you to reshoot these films with the lead characters switched. I would love to see Tommy Lee Jones in the Green Beret role and Hackman as the bad guy. As the bad guy, yeah.
That'd be fun.
Why don't they do that more often?
Why? I think so.
Why don't they double the budget?
What you're saying is every film should just be True West.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. No, I got you. Tonight, Ethan Hawke will be playing the role of John C. Reilly, and then tomorrow.
Think of all the debates we'd have if we had all right, we've got a Jaws where Dreyfus is the sheriff and plays Dreyfus's wife.
Tonight, the role of the wife will be played by Richard Dreyfuss.
Right.
And tonight, the shark will be played by Roy Scheider.
What if Quint was the sheriff, and he was a gay sheriff who was married to Richard Dreyfuss?
And Roy Scheider was the shark, was Jaws.
Right, and Roy Scheider was the yes.
Dude, sign me up. I'm there. I'm there opening night, man.
And the naked swimmer was Richard Dreyfuss's role. But she was naked the entire time.
And he just complained, right? Just over and over. He's always so, I just find him so kind of whiny in everything that he does. And anyway.
You're not that belies that Mr. Holland's Opus tattoo you got.
Don't tell anybody. Hide it, right? and it's all it is the sign language for beautiful boy.
Do you think there's anybody in the world that has a Mr. Holland's Opus?
No, I seriously,
tattoo?
I hope it's the sign language tattoos for beautiful boy. Like really,
okay,
really, like that would be
right.
That might be my next one. I've got some room left on one of my arms, so. And be like, oh, what does that say? And I'll just say it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful boy. They're like from Mr. Holland's Opus. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Where else is it? That song has no other relevance anywhere else outside of Mr. Holland's Opus.
I mean, come on. Yeah. Do you even know who sang that song besides Richard Dreyfuss? I mean,
it's. Isn't it weird that movies like people know what that movie is? That movie should have disappeared and never.
Yeah. Well, I also think like Forrest Gump should have disappeared, but I mean, yes, right. I do think Mr. Holland's Opus should never I don't know why we brought it up or we are discussing it because I think it's fucking terrible.
I forget the girl's name. I had a huge crush on her when it came out though. The one that he falls in love with too.
Yeah. The child.
Hey, I was her age when the movie came out.
No, I know, but for him,
yes, right? it's creepy for him. Yes. This idea that
fucking
also,
creepy.
Fuck you, Mr. Holland. Your life didn't turn out that bad.
It was Alicia Witt, right?
No. She was on that movie. She was on a sitcom for the longest time.
Jean Louise Kelly. Was that who it was?
That's it. Okay. Yeah, Jean Louise Kelly. Yes. Yeah.
Because I don't remember exactly who all played who.
Glenn Headley was his wife.
William H. Macy was his son.
He was. Shark took his hearing.
Yeah.
The shark punctured his eardrums as a baby.
And now we're just confusing the two movies, aren't we? I thought, because I was like, it's not Olympia Dukakis that he fell in love with.
I mean, we all fall in love. Yeah. More so than any of us, right?
I always forget that. I cannot believe that was Alicia Witt in Longlegs. That might have been the only surprise that movie gave me. The only feel good moment that movie gave me was just
such an odd career.
Appreciating Alicia Witt. Yeah. Yeah, I know. No shit. Okay, should we go on to loose cannons?
Let's loosen our cannons.
Some people might say that we are loose cannons. Just kidding.
They won't.
No, you're right.
No one's gonna say
An
that.
unconventional cop who takes no bull is paired up with an amazing detective to capture some powerful criminals, but the cop soon realizes that his by-the-book partner has split personality disorder. So I just want to like say one thing, like this
is not how
thing.
split personality disorder works.
Well, okay, yes, right, but also like this thing we used to do, right, where we used mental illness as a comic trope. It's a fucking hard beat to watch now, man. It is. It's.
And it happened a lot around this time.
I know.
And
I know.
Aykroyd did it again. Like Aykroyd was in the couch trip. There was funny people. Like there was a lot of like, yes, this was.
What about Bob?
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy that we were just like, it's cool. It's funny. Like, it's
mental
it's
illness
fine, this
is
person
hilarious.
And like when Aykroyd's explaining his trauma, it's pretty. I mean, it's pretty horrifying,
Also,
right? I mean, it's like it's
he was tortured, right, by like cartel, like.
Right.
What the fuck? Yeah.
This movie's fucking insane, by the way.
Nuts. It is nuts. I love that he goes to like a Benedictine like retreat, and that's where the psychiatrists are. Right. The brothers, the monks are fucking shrinks. Right? And they're there to help. Just
the whole premise of this film is that a pornographer has found a movie that supposedly Hitler. It's a blue movie where Hitler's in it, but then it's also like a suicide movie.
Yeah.
Like, why would they film that? Like, why would the Germans?
Because they documented everything, right?
On 35 millimeter, by the way, because that was a huge canister they threw out at the end.
I know. But I mean,
they didn't just take a super like a Super 8. They had a 35 millimeter camera in that. And they're gonna. And it wasn't Hitler's suicide. It was. I mean, like technically, I guess it was because he ordered it. But like ordering.
He took like cyanide, right? And then he like got gave him the coup de grace. But yeah, like, but it's a fucking weird premise, right?
This movie opens up with a boat chase where they're coming from a masquerade party and being chased by Germans because they've watched this film with Hitler. I guess, and again, it only really turns to suicide at the end, right? It wasn't like it was a blue movie at one point. It was like a porno with Hitler in it, starring Hitler.
But the whole thing, like behind the reason that they want to get the film back, is that the guy that shot Hitler, that like mercy killed Hitler, was running or was like up for election of German chancellor. And had denied that he had been a part of the Nazi party. And so, I mean, that, and then it shows him in like his uniform and like, I mean, so confirms that he actually was a Nazi. Right. But like, that's like the big, that's the big part of it. Not so much that,
Hey, can we pause 1 second? And so this movie starts off with a boat chase where Dom DeLuise, who's the pornographer, which also, like, can we not like ridiculously fat shame Dom DeLuise in this movie?
I know. Okay, that's the other thing, also, right?
Why was this is fucked up? And I know that that's probably part of his like. I know he was in Fatso, and I know that's part and parcel with kind of like his comedy, and I'm sure he was fine with it, and like he signed up for the role. But like, do we have to call him the fucking hippo? Like, it's just like it's so weird, like that. And again, I know I'm trying to retrofit today's standards to, but this wasn't funny then either. There's no reason that we call, like, Dom DeLuise. Yes, he was a portly man. There was no reason to call out his character to call him the hippo.
I mean, and it's not like we didn't know,
right? It's like it's like he doesn't know either. And I feel like if you employ Dom DeLuise, like, goddamn, if you employ Dom DeLuise, give him more to do than you do in this movie.
I know.
Like, I feel like all of like his like ability to improvise and throw dialogue out is completely wasted in this. You don't give him nearly enough screen time to kind of let him do what he does. Anyway, this movie starts off with a boat chase because they're being chased because these Germans are killing everyone who's even seen the film.
Yeah.
And they cut off the head of one of the guys who was at the ball, and he's like on a fishing line. And then they crash the boat. Two guys fly clear. Dom DeLuise and another dude like jump over a fence, and then it's just this like this movie's so fucking.
It's
bizarre.
Also what the fuck, like the conversation between Hackman and the other cop about how cars are an extension of your penis is just so weird and just like out of nowhere.
There's so many moments like that in this movie where like for a good long while, it feels like Aykroyd is trying to be this like straight-laced, like doesn't curse. He talks about like, pee-pee holes and like it's so fucking weird. When we see Hackman after he gets the assignment, so like Hackman's like this fucking in a really early appearance by David Alan Grier. Hackman is like this cop, right? He's just a cop.
Vice cop. He got busted down as a vice cop. Yeah.
So after the boat chase, we immediately cut to this like loud sex scene. We don't see anything. We just hear people having sex, and Hackman is there to bust it up, right? And he does this like what's supposed to be funny like moment of like he's a health inspector and like making sure that people having loud sex wear condoms. Yeah. And it's a fucking terrible scene.
Stupid. Yeah.
But then we get cut to this like, okay, so now you're back on this case of like you're going to be investigating these pornography murders because this guy it's obviously he's not the only time that this has happened. There's been so it's a whole thing. We need Hackman back because he's the best murder cop we've got, but we had he was in trouble. Okay, so he gets that role. Right, we go off and we hear the whole Dick car sequence because he's got this like old, wood paneled, and that makes no sense. And then we wake up outside of his apartment. He's sleeping outside of his apartment. Evidently, his apartment catches fire. Like we don't ever fucking see any of that. So like,
why even have that? What's the point?
I kept wondering like what the fuck happened here? Like why would you have that scene in here? Why if you're not going to show it? Like because again, what is it? What was it even referring to? Like, I mean, if his apartment had caught on fire and you still, I mean, if you don't show it, even if you do show it, it makes no sense in the terms of the movie, unless someone set it on fire because they found out he was assigned to this case. But all it does is it allows us to have all of Hackman's shit in his car the entire movie until the car gets torn up.
That's it. That's all it does. And it lets us see him take the cat into the crime scene.
Right, which makes
like okay, sure, but what the fuck? No, right, like why? None of that needed to be in there, but that just I feel like that kind of encapsulates this entire film. Like that's the kind of choices that were made like the entire time. Like none of it. It's so unnecessary.
Woefully miscast in this. He cannot stand up against Hackman, right? So I mean, like in every scene where they're together, he just feels like he's completely out of place.
Yeah,
like completely out of touch. The shit that they have him do in this, which is basically mimic pop culture characters where he's the Cowardly Lion or Popeye or Star Trek characters, when he has so whenever he gets confronted with violence or things that get his adrenaline up, or when he's going to bed, he has midnight
tantrums
as well, right? Where he retreats into this like what they call split personality, which is kind of fucked up way of saying it as well, but like whatever. And so he causes chaos. That's his loose cannonness, is that he causes chaos in the moment. And like but it's such a fucking stupid conceit. Like I mean, it never really adds anything. It like I get that you have to have something in this to make them like, but it feels like this was something like where they wanted to get Robin Williams involved or something like this. Feels like a Robin Williams role, and that he turned it down. Like, but
she's like, "This looks terrible. No, thank you."
Because I mean, like this reads like a more of a manic film, like a more manic, mean, violent film. Had you taken had the comedy been truly dark and not just this Aykroyd level of buffoonery, this kind of could have been an interesting movie, right? Because all of the underpinnings are really dark, right? They're going after a Hitler suicide tape. There's Hitler, and then there's German goons that are trying to kill everybody involved. You got these Israeli like operatives who are willing to kill for it as well. There could have been like, if you had to like turn this over to like Shane Black instead of Richard Matheson to write this, this could be an interesting film. This is why to me like. This feels like a Gigli type of a situation where like everyone's involved. Like this probably read really interesting on paper.
Yeah.
And then the execution of it is just completely botched. And which brings me to my question for you. Like Bob Clark.
Yeah.
Like what do we make of this? Because from here, like he then does I think he does Turk 182 and From the Hip, which are kind of middling, right?
Yeah.
And then it is a full blown descent into Super Babies and just shit. Like he goes and does Super Babies 2, and like Super Babies is a hit, but that's mainly because of video and the subject matter. It's a shit movie. Everyone thinks it's shit. They make a second one because the first one was a hit. The second one's just as bad as the first one, right? I mean,
right.
And then he does his last film is like Blonde and Blonder, which is a take on Legally Blonde and Dumb and Dumber with Denise Richards and Pamela Anderson. I think Pamela Anderson. I could be getting that wrong, but another one of those Baywatch type actresses.
Yeah, it is Pamela Anderson.
And that's it. Like I don't know what he brought to the table. I mean, like it just feels like one of these things like. And I can see like Michael Ritchie doing this as well, but like this film, like if I'm giving the money to this film, and I think I got Hackman, I got Clark, I got Matheson, and okay, I gotta settle for Aykroyd. But I mean, Aykroyd's it's a big enough name here, right? I mean, like
right. Well, if nothing else, you would have thought that Aykroyd could have brought some kind of like writing nuance to this as well. I mean, because I'm not a huge Aykroyd fan, like on screen, but I do think some of the stuff that he's written is like really good. I mean, from the old SNL stuff to the Blues Brothers, obviously. But I don't know what any of these people brought to anything here.
Right, and I just feel like I don't know, man. It's just it's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I'm never sure like what to make of Bob Clark, right? I mean, I'm always amazed that he did Black Christmas for whatever reason, because I mean, I feel like stuff like Porky's and A Christmas Story and shit like this is probably more of what his lane was, right? For better or worse.
Yeah, Black Christmas, Death Dream.
Worse,
I mean, I feel like
right?
there were. I feel like earlier on, but yeah, I mean, like
early stuff. Right.
It feels like he stumbled into hits that. And again, this may be a huge disservice to him, but I mean, he feels like he stumbled into hits because they were coming around at the right time, and the audience had an appetite for them. But yeah, I mean, like Porky's is not a good movie.
No,
it's not like it was just one that for whatever reason cost nothing, and was outrageous enough at the time to to garner some attention. And obviously, I mean, like but films like that happen all the time, right? I mean, it's not like
And I don't even look. I mean, I know A Christmas Story is on like all the time, like ad nauseum at Christmas, like for every single hour of the day for I don't know, like 20 days or whatever. But I'm not sure how good it is. I mean, I think that movie. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's Porky's. That's not what I. That's not what I mean. But I mean, I think that like its popularity and its praise comes from this kind of oversaturation and nostalgia more than it does the actual craft of the film.
Yeah,
that's what I mean, right? But that goes back to kind of what you were saying. He's falling into this kind of these like cultural moments because, I mean, look, when A Christmas Story came out in 1983, was it like the revered like Christmas film that it is now? No,
I don't think so.
No,
right?
That's what I mean. Like we had all seen it, but of course we were the right age to see it. But now, like it's on whatever channel you want to find. Like, I mean, I just mean it's on like all the fucking time. And yes,
right.
Yes, I watch it several times, but that's not the point.
Right.
Yeah. so
yeah, I mean,
know.
like, and I hate to end on a. I think. Look, as much as we get through this film, like in it, how really truly like it's to me, it's not necessarily it's just as bad as it's just baffling.
Yeah,
like there's just so like every choice that they make is seemingly the wrong one, and I feel like Hackman is still good in this. I think Nancy Travis is good in this actually. I think, and I think like if this had played less like Dragnet and more. Like I said, something more dark in its tone. Mm-hmm. And I think Aykroyd could have played that. If you look at some of the Aykroyd in Grosse Pointe Blank, where I think that Aykroyd would have worked here. That level of popcorn, kind of like that kind of like sinister nature to I mean, like had there been really, less buddy comedy and more these two guys might actually kill each other kind of thing. You know, had you have had more Hackman be more like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon kind of, and Aykroyd be more Grosse Point Blank, I think, and maybe at it with a steadier hand and a more assured hand, this works better, right? I mean, like, but this ends like you think it's going to end, right? Where they become fucking friends and they become partners, and like it should have been more hard edged. It should have been where these guys still fucking like, you know, Hackman should at some point realize that he needs Aykroyd here, right? I mean, like that this is actually the only way that they're going to be able to solve this case is to by like kind of utilizing that, you know, basically trying to figure out how you can control Aykroyd and then set him off when you need to set him off and push him in the right direction to like kind of take care of shit, right? And then have Aykroyd have the realization that he is in control of it, right? That he can come out of all of these. And that, there's just, fuck, this movie's so like, it's so weird that this is like bad. Loose cannons is spelled with 2 offset O's kind of shit. This movie, like, who the fuck thought they were making this movie? And going back to Dom DeLuise, you have, that should be the comedic element, right?
Yeah.
He should be.
Yes.
He should be
Joe
spitting
Pesci
out lines.
in Lethal Weapon.
Yes, he should be there the entire fucking time. Yeah. Like, why do you sideline him? Yeah. Because the scene where you get at the end with at his grotto kind of thing is so good. Like, it's so much fun. Like, where he's like,
I know.
This like every spa have all these guns, and he's like, and he just and like him like. And that's so fucking that whole like that's where the funny shit should come in, right?
Mm-hmm,
is like, and again, this is where you get it in a Shane Black. Is like in a Shane Black film, is when they're all holding those weapons, they clearly don't know how to hold or know how to shoot, and they're just basically just waving the guns all over the place.
Right.
That's where the humor should come in. This that's the thing is I would love to see like someone actually take this plot, and I mean like if Shane Black to rewrite this and make it, I think it'd be really interesting to do. Alas, we will never see that. But like,
no,
I think that there's something. I think that's what's so frustrating with this film is there's something there, and that I think everyone wants to have it be there, and it just kind of just fucking falls apart, man. It's so
bad.
Yeah, bad. It's just so bad. It's so bad.
So bad.
But yeah, I mean, like, and I remember this as a kid. I watched it when I necessarily a kid. I was in high school, but I remember watching this when it came out because it was just another video store staple, and I really kind of forgotten most of it except for like the 35mm print through the window, and it's the cheeseball ending that it has. It's just so fucking dumb. Like the whole like. Of course, you can see it coming from a mile away, right? Where Aykroyd's going to be the guy who shoots the bad guy in the head at the end, and like, I'm surprised they didn't make Aykroyd and Nancy Travis fall in love with together. That would have been the other thing. That would have been the other thing that should have happened in this type of movie is that these two people would have that we would have had some sort of ridiculous love interest in there. But whatever, man, it is what it is. Go ahead.
The only interesting thing that I found about this film was that J.T. Walsh was supposed to be in it. He was supposed to be like the bad guy at the end, right, with the gun and stuff. But Aykroyd,
I would have liked that a lot better.
Aykroyd had him fired because of his involvement with the Belushi biopic.
Oh, fuck you. Well, I guess it would have been pretty quick, though, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Man, did we? Another thing for a different time because I know we've gone on, but like
we always go on. That's what we do.
But that is an interest. Like I don't think that's a story that people really remember much now.
Right.
But like how much people were blacklisted. That were involved in that, and like Chiklis's career almost wasn't resurrected. Right. I mean, he was fucked for a good long time, and I wonder what the feeling is. 40 years later to like what Aykroyd feels about if you put Aykroyd and Chiklis in a room together, what the conversation would be.
Yeah. I mean, look, Chiklis always will have the commish. So
right, sure. He's done fine for himself, right? But I mean, like he had to do the Shield on his own. Basically, he developed that and sold that with his wife. But I remember, I mean, I distinctly remember when that movie came out, and like people were just like fucking, I mean, like livid. And it's surprising to me that like, Chiklis was able to claw his way out of it, because it was seen as such a thing you didn't do.
Right.
And also you don't really talk about like how much Belushi was loved and like beloved, and like how much he did for people.
Dude, right.
How many careers
right.
that guy actually made,
Right.
you know?
Right.
His life and his short-lived life was very, very interesting. And like, as much as I love Reitman's film, like I really would like a deep dive early, like how all of that came together, not just the first night, but like the culmination of pulling those people in and starting that effort, because those guys weren't rock stars. They were fucking nobodies on the comedy scene. Like, I mean, they were respected, but they weren't movie stars. They were just artists. Yeah. And it's such a fucking like that whole, and now it's just an institution, you can get people to come, but like the idea of kind of throwing, taking advantage of this opportunity, but like not knowing what it is and still having to deal with like Belushi's assholery and like, I mean, all of it. I mean, even as good of a guy that he was to certain people in the industry, like it's just, and like all the drug use and like everything else. It's just,
and that stuff will make you an asshole.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Right. Yeah.
Well, rest in peace, Gene.
Gene?
You left us with the.
Hackman. Yeah. I thought, I forgot. Okay. Yeah. I was like, his name's John. Like, not.
I mean, I do get a lot of things wrong on this podcast. I'll give you that.
Just like, wait a minute. But yes. Rest in peace, Mr. Hackman. We feel I don't know, privileged to have gone over 4 of your maybe less talked about films. So if you're listening to us up there, I don't know. Do you think they have podcasts in heaven? And movie star heaven, probably.
If they don't, I don't want to go, Brian. I don't want to go.
Well, don't worry about that.
Touche. Good point.
Yeah, don't worry about that. So next time, we're going to take a look at a couple of new films and start a kind of mini series at a contemporary filmmaker, Amanda Kramer. And we're going to do that before we jump into the early films of Robert Altman, the early alts, as I'm calling it.
Ooh, that'll grow on me. It didn't hit me right the first time I heard it, but I like it. Don't get me wrong. Don't get that disgusted reaction that I just had. That initial like guttural repulsion that I had to that. Because I will come around on the early alts.
The early alts.
That's t-shirt level.
There you
shit right there. It's really good. It's really good. I apologize that my first reaction was like, because I'm gonna regret it.
See, now you're thinking about it. You're going like, oh shit, I wish I would have come up with that. God damn.
I do. Yeah.
That's good.
I absolutely.
Yeah. So that's what you have to look forward to. Jason, anything else you need to touch on before we get out of here? Anything else you want to I was going to say pimp, but that's not the right word. Anything else you want to shout out?
No, go out to our website, go out to realhousefoundation.org and see our calendar. We hope to see you at an event. We butts and seats is what we aim for. All of our events are mostly free. They're all free. We may ask for a small. We may pass the donation plate around occasionally, but that doesn't mean if you don't want to or you can't, that's perfectly fine. And absolutely mean that. We just want butts and seats. We want you talking about films. If you have questions, comments for us, please get them out to us. I'd love to have some listener feedback where we can talk about questions. If they have things that we've talked about where you said, hey, you guys were fucking wrong about this or you were fucking right about that, let us know, because that provides for good podcasting as well. So but outside of that, thank you for listening, and we hope to, if you do see us at an event we haven't met in person, please feel free to come up. We are very approachable. All this tough guy exterior that we have, this 70s tough guy,
that's right.
It's all
we'll
facade.
Fight you drunk
it's all
not.
facade.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We only look like Gene Hackman. We're not as mean or as tough. Yeah. We're much more huggable.
Receding hairline and pudgy for sure. Good actors, not at all.
Nope.
But
Yeah. All right then. So until next time, thank you all very much for listening.
And keep screaming.
have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time.